Welcome to the Great Basin Winter and Fire Potential Outlook for January through April. This is Gina McGuire. In this webcast, we'll look at recent weather over the last couple of months, along with the current and expected state of El Nino and the weather and fire potential forecast through April. First, we'll start looking at the temperature and precipitation over the last 30 days. The image on the left is showing temperature through the month of December, with areas shaded in green indicating below normal temperatures over southern portions of the Great Basin, and as you move further north, we're seeing temperatures near or slightly above normal, indicated by the yellow and orange coloring. The image on the right shows the precipitation over the last 30 days. We have had several storm systems move through the Great Basin and the west this winter, and it has brought above normal precipitation to much of the northwest, also down into the Sierra Nevada, and into much of the northern half of Nevada and Idaho, and also even some portions of Utah in the higher elevations have seen above normal precipitation, with still below normal precipitation over much of southern and southwest Nevada. Now if we look at the precipitation back to the beginning of the water year, which is October 1st, we see much of the Great Basin and the Northwest and Northern Rockies has seen above normal precipitation. Now how this translates to the current snowpack, we have seen quite a bit of snow in the higher elevations, and most areas across Nevada, Idaho, and to the northwest are seeing conditions 150 to almost 200% of normal. We're also seeing these well above normal snowpack conditions over southern and southeast Utah. Over parts of Idaho, the northern Rockies, and into northern Utah and western Wyoming, we're still seeing wetter conditions, however the snowpack is only near to slightly above normal. How this compares to December of last year, you can see quite a drastic change. The image on the left is showing the snowpack at the end of December of 2014, and you can see most areas of the Great Basin were either below normal or just near normal in the far north. However, again, this year we're definitely well above normal in all areas of the Great Basin. Now if we look at the drought monitor, we've been in a state of drought now for over 4 years. We still do have a large area of exceptional to extreme drought over California, the Sierra, and western Nevada. Areas over the eastern side of the Great Basin have definitely been faring better, but still are seeing some moderate to severe drought. Over the next several months, we'll likely see increases in precipitation over parts of California and Nevada, which will still allow the drought to continue. However, we will see some improvements. Areas further east will likely see some areas even removed from the drought classification. Now we'll look at our current state of ENSO, or El Nino Southern Oscillation. We have been in a state of El Nino for the last several months, which is classified by very warm sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. This El Nino is now the strongest El Nino we've seen since 1997. You can see in the image on the left the actual sea surface temperatures, and by the red coloring you can see that these are very warm temperatures. However, it's the image on the right which shows the sea surface temperature anomalies that show how far above normal these actual sea surface temperatures are. And you can see this long swath of dark red coloring across the equatorial Pacific, indicating again that strength of El Nino. What we can expect in the coming months, we're likely at the peak of El Nino at the present time, which means we'll see El Nino gradually weaken as we move through the rest of the winter and spring, but still remain fairly prominent. We will also continue to feel the effects of El Nino in the weather patterns through the rest of the winter and spring as well. And what that means for our area, it typically means a southern storm track, bringing a lot more stormy conditions, above normal precipitation, and cooler temperatures to the southern tier of the country, which also includes the southern half of the Great Basin. However, further north, we'll likely see much warmer and drier conditions over the northern tier of the country, and this includes Idaho and the northern portion of the Great Basin into the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. Now that we've looked at all the recent weather and the current state of El Nino, along with our drought conditions and snowpack, we can put all that together with our expectations for the coming months and for the coming weather patterns, along with any fire potential across the Great Basin. There's a lot going on in this image, but first let's focus on the very top portion of the image, and this shows kind of a broad spectrum of what to expect for the next 4 months from January through April. Typically, again, as we already noted with the El Nino that will be hanging around and gradually weakening, we'll likely see warmer temperatures over the northern tier of the country and cooler temperatures in the southern tier, along with drier conditions in the north and wetter conditions over the southern portion of the country. If we look at the individual months, which are the images on the bottom half of the screen, you'll see first we'll move from left to right. January, the top images shows the expected temperatures, and the bottom images shows the expected precipitation. For the Great Basin, as we move through January, we'll still be seeing these warmer temperatures over much of the northern two-thirds of the Great Basin, with likely drier conditions eventually across Idaho, and these wetter conditions starting to emerge over parts of Southern California and the Southwest. And if you move from left to right, you can see as we go through February, March, and April, these wetter conditions continue and expand with generally above normal precipitation expected for at least the southern half or southern two-thirds of the Great Basin through the month of April. Also with these wetter conditions, we'll likely see these cooler temperatures over southern areas of the Great Basin, but still warm and dry conditions further north. So as we move throughout the next 4 months, our expectations for fire potential would remain quite low with these wet conditions and cool temperatures in most areas. Even areas across Idaho that will likely remain on the warmer and drier side of these weather patterns will still see fuels in dormancy and very quiet period over the next 4 months, which is normal for the Great Basin to see very little fire activity through the month of March and April. However, later in the outlook period, especially as we approach spring, if we do start to see periods of drier conditions followed by wind, we may see a brief uptick in fire activity. Again, we will still be focusing on wetter conditions, and this will bring concerns as we move into the fire season, especially with fine fuel growth. So we'll be closely monitoring these precipitation trends over the next 4 to 5 months, and that will give us a better indication how much fuel is around and also what the weather patterns will be like as we move through the summer. But again, we will be watching that fine fuel growth. In summary, drought conditions still persist across much of Nevada, but we'll likely see some improvements through the spring, with greater improvement further east. Our fuels are still in dormancy through the winter and are expected to remain that way. Strong El Nino will continue over the next couple of months, but will gradually be weakening. So again, we're expecting drier areas and warmer temperatures over the northern areas of the Great Basin, and cooler temperatures and especially wetter conditions over southern areas of the Great Basin. So again, there are no fire concerns over the next 4 months, but we will closely be monitoring that precipitation over the next several months to give us an indicator for how much fuel will be present for the fire season and also where we'll have increased fire potential for the 2016 fire season. That concludes our webcast for today. If you have any questions about the outlook, feel free to give us a call or contact us on the emails on the screen. Thank you for listening.